Right? Listen to this. Fabien Galthié has just dropped three absolute titans of French rugby. Gregory Aldrit, Gaël Fickou, and Damien Penaud. Gone. Not injured, not rested. Dropped.
Adrian, before you start hyperventilating,
Hyperventilating? Gavlar, this is Robespierre-level guillotining. We're talking about a former captain, their most capped player, and their leading try-scorer. This is rugby suicide.
or strategic genius. But we'll get to that. Welcome to Rugby Rundown, the podcast that cuts through the noise to deliver the analysis that matters. I'm Gavlar, your resident stats nerd, joined as always by Adrian, our passionate pundit. Today we're dissecting the 2026 Six Nations squad announcements, but more importantly, we're asking the fundamental question. With only 20 months until the 2027 World Cup in Australia, do these teams have enough time to prepare properly?
And it's not just about time, it's about courage. The courage to blood new players when the stakes are getting higher by the day.
Right, because what we're seeing across the Six Nations is what I'm calling the Great Divergence. Some teams are taking radical gambles, others are clinging to experience. The data suggests only one approach will work come World Cup time. Adrian, let's start with France's nuclear option.
Look, I get the logic, but the execution is ruthless beyond belief. Aldrit has been France's emotional leader for years. Fickou is the defensive captain, the guy who organizes that backline. And Penaud, he's their X-Factor finisher.
But that's exactly why Galtier's done it now. Here's the key stat.
Oh, here we go with the numbers.
Any player making their debut in this Six Nations has a maximum of 22 caps before the World Cup starts. That's it. The mathematical window for creating a 30-cap international, the statistical benchmark for World Cup reliability, closes after Super Saturday this year.
Okay, but what about team chemistry? What about leadership? You can't quantify heart, Gavlar.
Actually, you can. World Cup winners typically need 60% of their squad in that prime 26 to 29 age bracket with 30 to 50 caps. France is gambling that Timo Mathieu and Marco Gazzotti can hit those numbers by October 2027. If they can't, they recall the veterans, who'll be hungry after being dropped.
But what if they lose faith? What if the young guys crumble under Six Nations pressure? You're talking about replacing proven performers with question marks.
That's the genius of doing it now. Errors in 2026 are learning opportunities. Errors in 2027 are selection guillotines. Compare that to what Ireland and Scotland are doing.
Right? The farewell tour brigade. Peter O'Mahony, Cian Healy, Conor Murray, 370 combined caps walking into retirement.
And Scotland, with the oldest squad in the championship at 29.1 years average age, 17 players over 30. They're essentially betting everything on one last hurrah from their golden generation.
But hang on, there's something to be said for experience and cohesion. These players know each other's games inside out. They've been through the wars together.
Sure, but at what cost? Every minute Conor Murray plays at 35 is a minute denied to Nathan Doak or Craig Casey. Every start for Cian Healy prevents a younger loosehead from gaining Tier 1 experience. They're prioritizing a Six Nations three-peat over World Cup depth.
And what about England? They're caught in the middle, aren't they?
England's fascinating because they're undergoing forced evolution. Dan Cole and Joe Marler's retirements have created an experience vacuum, so Borthwick's had to blood three uncapped forwards, Vilakesa Sella, Emmanuel Iogan, Greg Fissilau.
That's trial by fire. If Sella can anchor a scrum against France in this tournament, he becomes a legitimate World Cup option. If he'd spent 2026 sitting behind Dan Cole, his readiness would be theoretical.
Exactly. But here's where it gets controversial. We need to talk about this 30-cap threshold concept because it's becoming the most contentious metric in rugby. The argument goes, players under 30 caps are statistically more likely to commit crucial errors in knockout rugby.
I hate this stat, Gavlar. I absolutely hate it.
Why?
Because it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. If coaches keep picking 34-year-old veterans because they're safer, when do the young players ever get the chance to reach 30 caps? It's a closed loop that kills development.
But the data doesn't lie. Look at every World Cup winning squad since 2007.
The data is backward-looking. You're using historical patterns to predict future success. But rugby's evolved. The game's faster, more physical. Sometimes you need that raw hunger and athleticism over tired legs and fading reflexes.
Fair point, but here's the brutal reality. We're talking about only 20 test matches remaining before Australia. 20! That's not enough runway to create experience depth if you haven't started already.
Unless you're brave enough to take the risk. Which brings us to the real question. Who's positioned best for 2027?
From a pure numbers perspective, France and England are making the smartest long-term plays. They're accepting short-term volatility to purchase 20 months of development. The uncapped players getting blooded now will hit 15 to 20 caps by the World Cup. Not ideal, but viable.
But Ireland and Scotland aren't stupid. They're maximizing their current window while their golden generations are still at peak. The risk is that cliff edge in 2027.
Exactly. They're effectively shorting the future to buy success in the present. If their veterans maintain form, they'll be formidable through 2026. But if the aging curve catches up, which it statistically will, they'll arrive in Australia with squads that are either too old or too inexperienced.
Wales is the wild card here. Steve Tandy's basically been forced into year zero with an average age of just 26.5. They might struggle brutally in 2026, but every minute they invest in players like Louis Hennessy and Gabriel Hamer-Webb is pure profit for the future.
Right, which leads us to predictions. And I'm going bold here.
Always dangerous when you go bold, Gavlar.
France's Robespierre strategy will pay dividends. They'll struggle early in this Six Nations, maybe finish fourth, but by 2027, they'll have 2 layers of world-class options at every position. That depth wins World Cups.
I'm backing Ireland for 2026, but predicting heartbreak in 2027. Their farewell tour mentality will create incredible emotion for this championship, but they're gambling everything on veterans defying Father Time. That's a bet you usually lose.
England will be the dark horse. Borthwick's forced evolution might accidentally create the perfect blend of experience and youth. Watch those uncapped props. Sela and Iogan could be the foundation of something special.
Scotland's going all in on one final roll of the dice. 17 players over 30, betting on a dad's army strategy. It's romantic, but rugby's a young man's game at World Cup intensity.
And here's my boldest prediction. Wales will finish this Six Nations with the wooden spoon, but will reach a World Cup semi-final in 2027. Sometimes you have to lose with the kids today to win with the men tomorrow.
That's properly bold. My take? The teams brave enough to embrace the pain now will be holding trophies later. History suggests that courage beats comfort every time.
That's all for today's Rugby Rundown. The 2026 Six Nations isn't just a tournament, it's a stress test of 2 opposing philosophies about time, development, and what it takes to win the biggest prize in rugby. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and remember, the best analysis happens when you combine the numbers with the heart of the game.
Until next time, keep watching the spaces. Sometimes that's where the real game is won and lost.